monster in you. A strange tune seems to.
And it is our Halloween show, which we have fun with every year. Tim, you usually get some trick-or-treaters, though, but probably none this year.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know if the city of Pasadena out here has, banned it or anything, but not this year. So I do know that they have one of those drive-by, things where you get in the car and you drive by and all the people have decorated the house. There's one of those in the neighborhood. I don't know, 6-1. So it'll be okay, I guess.
Yeah, we did one of those actually yesterday. We did. There's a thing out here at a ranch in the mountains called Night of the Jacks. It's at the Gillette Ranch, and you usually walk through. It's about a mile of just really cool jack-o'-lanterns and spooky music. But they did drive through this year, and it was really cool. There's all these kind of themed. I mean, the jack-o'-lanterns are amazing. I don't know if they're legit or not, but there's like one where they're all carved like the planets in the solar system. There's another one where they're all carved like Hollywood, popular Hollywood couples and classic Hollywood and, all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm always amazed at people who do that to a pumpkin because it's going to rot. You're creating artwork that's going to die.
Yeah. I don't know. Halloween used to be one of my favorite holidays across the year. I've never been a Christmas guy. Some people are Christmas people, but I was always big on Halloween and for whatever reason the 4th of July. Those were my two biggies. So
I don't know which one would be my favorite. I mean, I
used to have that gigantic 4th of July party. One of the first parties I ever went to in 1990, I think.
Yeah, for a lot of years I had my big 4th of July stonk party, which just got to be unwieldy at a certain point. You get to be a certain age, you're like, why am I inviting 100 people to my house on the 4th of July? Those things used to get kind of unhinged. Lots of people. Anyway, I don't know. I like Halloween. My daughter loves Halloween, so I guess I got no choice. But we're gonna get right into it. And I got a lot of Halloween-y stuff here, including one giveaway courtesy of WellGo. But I want to start off. We got some. If you're an anime fan, there's some anime that is suitable for Halloween. And from the good people at the Aniplex Library via Funimation, we have Demon Slayer, which has been, could there be anything more anime Halloween than Demon Slayer? This is Demon Slayer Part 1, episodes 1 through 13 on Blu-ray. And it takes place in feudal Japan, of course, and it deals with this boy who has to deal with the fact that his sister has been turned into a demon, and they are the last survivors of their family. And he has to go out and kill the demon whose death will enable him to set things right in his family. It is fairly charming. It is kind of, Joseph Campbell-y like most of these things are, but the feudal aspect of it and the monster aspect of it is actually quite original. As long as we're on the subject of demons, we also have The Demon Girl Next Door, the complete collection. There is nothing at all scary about this. It just happens to also have the word demon in it. It's about a girl who wakes up one morning and realizes she's got horns on her head. And of course,
that would suck.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Well, I mean, not just a bad hair day, but a horn day. So anyway, it's... and then it takes kind of a similar trajectory, which is, redeem your family and why do you have horns and all that kind of stuff. But it's all done in a very, very kind of cute, wide-eyed, juvenile way. Much more serious are the demons in Lady Death, the motion picture. How's that for a name?
Yeah.
It's incredibly well animated, really, really cool. It takes place in the 15th century, I guess, according to my notes here. Yeah. 15th century, and it's something of a superhero tale with monsters. It's got the underworld and Lucifer and the lead heroine's name is Hope, as if you need the allegory to be any more obvious. But the mythical structure of it is a little bit complicated. It goes in a few different directions, but the animation is really, really, really cool. And then the last one here is Beautiful Bones, Sakurako's Investigation. It takes a little bit getting into this, but it's worth it. Also, really, really well animated. Kind of a I don't want to call it. It's a little bit like anime. It's not like I was going to compare it to Seven and to Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
From an anime standpoint, but there's kind of more to it. It's not quite that. That sort of undersells it a little bit. Very, very well written, but you do have to kind of stick with it to there are 12 episodes on 2 discs, so you kind of have to stick with. By about episode 6, it'll start to make sense. So you got to kind of stick with it. But anyway, that's that for the anime end of things, and then we got some great 4Ks that are bound to be great for people who are horror fans or even just general kind of scary movie fans. Blue Underground has started to release 4Ks, and so they're going deep into the exploitation dungeon to come up with a couple of Lucio Fulci giallo films here.
Oh.
The House by the Cemetery and the New York Ripper. Both of them are kind of classic vintage Fulci. Lots of gore, lots of giallo, all that, nasty giallo blood gushing stuff that you would expect. Both of them take place in New York City. I would say The House by the Cemetery is probably the better film, but you're really kind of getting your dose with both of them. Tons and tons of extras here, mostly interviews. Heaps and gobs and tons of interviews with the cast, with the people who made it, the effects people, the makeup effects people, the cinematographers. I mean, it's really, really great. And then, of course, Troy Howarth, who wrote the book on Lucio Fulci, does an audio commentary for both of them. How do they look in 4K? Fine. I'm not going to say it's brilliant 4K. They are old giallo films. They didn't look that great to begin with, but it's certainly better than Blu-ray. And then the rest here are a couple of them are not necessarily horror. We have 300 on 4K, which is not a horror film, but it's scary-ish, so I'm going to throw it in anyway, and it's new to 4K. I think everybody here knows by this stage, you probably go back to Stupid for Movies, and you know how I feel about the director of 300. So we won't open that can of worms again. But Tiana, have you seen 300 again in recent years?
Not in recent years. The last time I saw it though was on a big old gigantic 4K TV, right?
Yeah.
HD, and I gotta tell you, you can kind of tell those abs were enhanced.
Yeah.
And I just remember seeing that, thinking to myself, really,
Yeah.
really. Oh well.
Yeah, I mean, it has it's just excessively CGI'd and a little bit too tricked up for me, but a lot of people love it.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with a certain Hollywood actor whose name I will not mention, but he was nuts for it, and I was like, all right, knock yourself out. And by the way, speaking of name dropping here, about 3 weeks ago, I saw Gerard Butler.
No.
I was having lunch with a friend at a little kind of patio here, a little sandwich place, and I look over right next to us, and there's Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
Looking very hairy and ungroomed, by the way.
He kind of does, because he lives over by our buddy Sherman Augustus.
Yeah.
And whenever I would go walking with Sherman up Runyon Canyon there, 9 times out of 10 we run into Gerard Butler. And we'd always think to ourselves, really, because Gerard gets a little thick and shaggy when he's not working, and then he's one of those guys who when 6 weeks before time he goes out and does the thing and pulls it all back together. That's going to get harder as he gets older, though. I got to tell you that.
Oh yes, it will. And then the last 2 4Ks here. One is animated DC Universe movie Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which, again, not exactly horror, but Apocalypse kind of has a thing, a Halloweeny sound to it. And this is all about fighting Darkseid, the villain Darkseid, who's kind of like the Thanos of DC. And they throw John Constantine in here, so
Huh.
there's your Halloween tie-in. Actually, it's pretty good. It's on par with the rest of them, and it's got a showcase short here, Adam Strange. Really, really good 4K. The animation always comes off really well. And then the last one is the new director's cut of Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream on 4K, which looks really amazing.
Yeah,
It looks
didn't
better than it
it
did.
have an anniversary? What is that? 20-25 years? 2020 something like.
Oh man, yeah, something like that. What are we? Where are we at here? 2020 years, man.
Yeah. Okay. I
20
thought
years
so.
since Requiem for a Dream. But yeah, I mean, I didn't love this movie at the time. I thought it got a little bit out of control, and I'm kind of sick of addiction movies. But for Halloween, man, there's nothing scarier than losing your mind to a drug addiction and heroin. And Ellen Burstyn has some absolutely horrific kind of fantasy sequences in this thing. And this is what launched Jared Leto as a kind of a legit actor in many ways.
And that Wayans boy too, Marlon, I believe that was
Yep,
that
Marlon.
that was Marlon's moment to establish himself as a sort of dramatically capable actor.
Which the way he is again in the new Sofia Coppola film.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, with Rashida Jones and Bill Murray back at work again. Yeah.
And have you seen that yet?
No, I have not seen that yet. I heard him talk about it on Film Week.
Yeah.
Our colleagues,
Yeah.
and they both loved it.
It was getting some bad press initially. I watched it a couple of nights ago on Apple Plus,
Yeah.
Apple TV, whatever the hell it's called. And it's really good. It's right in the pocket with her meditative stuff, like Lost in Translation and No Air, and Bill Murray is amazing. Rashida Jones is amazing. It's mainly about the two of them. And Marlon Wayans plays Rashida Jones's husband. And I mean, this doesn't give anything away. It's a question of, it's a fidelity thing. Is he or is he not being faithful to her? And she has all these worries. And Bill Murray plays her kind of wackadoodle dad who was, never around, but now, he's sort of a globe-trotting art dealer. Anyway, the person that doesn't get enough credit for why that movie works is Marlon Wayans. Because yes, Bill Murray is the showcase guy, and he's doing his shtick, and he's got these great scenes where he chews the scenery, and Rashida Jones is just wonderful and delightful. But ultimately, the thing hinges on, is he or is he not a good guy? And Marlon Wayans doesn't have a ton of scenes in it.
Mm-hmm.
But every time he does have a scene, he has got to make you wonder.
Yeah.
That performance has to say, yeah, I'm a guy who could cheat on my wife. And the other half of the performance has to say, no, man, I'm a really good guy. I love my wife and I love my kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people appreciate how difficult that is for an actor to pull off.
Absolutely true, Wade. Walking that sort of thin line.
Yeah.
Because basically you have to play two different characters.
That's it.
You're one guy in this movie, and but you got to play two different guys in this movie, such that the audience cannot really figure out which guy you really are.
And that's it. And everything that Bill Murray and Rashida Jones do hinges on the audience believing in that ambiguity. So if the audience doesn't believe that ambiguity, they're not going to believe that Rashida Jones and Bill Murray believe in the ambiguity. So it really is. It's just a beautiful work. Everything about it. Sofia Coppola nailed it again. I'm sure a lot of it comes from her own life experiences. It often does. But anyway,
Lost in Translation is one of my just one of my favorite films of all time. Lost in Translation.
Same here. Love it. Love it.
Oh, work in that movie. Yeah.
Lastly, too, let me make mention of some stuff for the kids, because we do have some kiddie stuff here. There is Are You Afraid of the Dark from Nickelodeon, which was a limited series event, they call it, and not exactly typical of what used to show up on Nickelodeon, or what has in the past shown up on Nickelodeon. But it's a 3-part limited series that's pretty creepy. It gets a little dark. It's not your standard Nickelodeon fare, and it's all about this secret society called the Midnight Society, and this girl who wants to join it, and it all kind of takes you through this event called the Tale of Mr. Top Hat and the Carnival of Doom. And it's actually a little scary for that crowd, but it winds up being an awful lot of fun. And then on a much lighter note is Zombies 2 on Disney. This is only on DVD. You can probably see this on Disney Plus as well, I'm sure. But nothing scary about this. This is just like High School Musical with zombie kids. And zombies, don't see Zombies 2 if you didn't see the first one. And then really young for my daughter's age is the Wiggles, Wiggly Halloween. This is from Kino Lorber, and the Wiggles are one of they're just a really, really popular and very fun kid entertainment series, and they do all their singing and dancing and all that usual stuff, and none of it is scary, but all of it's very, very Halloweeny. So for the kids, that's what you got. You got Wiggles, zombies, and Are You Afraid of the Dark from Nickelodeon. What else do we have, Tim?
Well, I know I told you I was going to start up on some of that exploitation stuff, but actually I jumped down to some of the newish movies because there are several movies in there that I actually had to see for Film Week. So I figured I'd chit chat about those a little bit. They are kind of horror-y, movie-y sort of movies, relatively speaking. The first one, Scare Package. Interesting little sort of storyline, a little B movie storyline that incorporates a whole lot of 3 horror movies in one movie. You got this guy, he runs this video store. It's already we're already in Stranger Things territory. He has this one buddy he's talking to all the time, and he's telling this buddy about all the conventions of horror movies. And as he does so, we work our way through all these little segments. These several segments of horror movies, and it's kind of fun and nothing you haven't seen before, but nevertheless it's mostly funny, but a little bit on the scary side. So Scare Package, not the worst movie to watch in the next 4 or 5 nights if you haven't got anything else to do. A whole lot of writers are credited because there's several segments, and each of the segments are written by different people, so that's kind of cool.
Right.
The Owners was a movie that I had to see for Film Week, which was kind of cool. The thing that I loved about it is that Sylvester McCoy is in it, and Sylvester McCoy is something like the 6th Doctor in the Doctor Who series or something like that. Nevertheless, this was a pretty interesting little movie in the way that it has about 3 or 4 twists and turns in it, none of which you really see coming. You got these young people, 2 knuckleheads, want to go and hit the house of these old people, including this doctor who lived way out in the middle of this sort of British countryside. They understand that he has a safe, and in that safe there's some gold doubloons or something ridiculous like.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And one of them has a girlfriend played by Maisie Williams, and folks will know Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I love Maisie Williams.
And so they do this, and they take Sylvester McCoy and his wife Rita Tushingham. Love Rita Tushingham. Look her up from the sort of mod
Oh, yeah.
British films.
The Knack and How to Get.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. And they take them hostage and they threaten them, and the tables turn, and it turns out that something else is going on, and they probably shouldn't have took the old people hostage. It's one of those things. The kids find themselves in a hell of a lot of trouble. So one of those. I kind of liked it. Thought it was pretty cool. Twists and turns and twists and turns again. The Owners. It would be cool if they put something on that box, but I bet they probably didn't, did they? Nah.
Really, just making a featurette. That's it. Nothing else.
That's kind of cool though. One called Welcome to the Circle. This movie is completely wacky. So, it begins with what is literally a random bear attack. Father, daughter out in the woods get attacked by a bear. Okay. They get picked up by these people who happen to be in a cult. The cult doesn't know it, but there's a infiltrator in their ranks, and the infiltrator is a demon. So
okay,
a random bear attack, a cult, a demon. Anyway, it's all completely. Welcome to the circle. So what the hell? And I feel like, you know what? You're right. Welcome to the circle. That's some wacky shit. Wait, I know you saw Save Yourself.
Oh boy, Save Yourselves.
Yeah. I have to send people. I have to send people to the website, and so they can read your review.
Yeah, it'll take you a long time to get through the review. It's rather lengthy.
One whole word.
One word.
Say a few more things about it for the show, though, if you don't mind.
here's the thing: save yourselves. It got a little bit of buzz from festivals and whatnot, and we get these emails that try to, obviously they doll everything up, and half the time it's not. The publicists are doing their job; they're making it sound significantly better than it has any right to sound. And the in the case of Save Yourselves, it's about a couple who are so addicted to social media that they decide to take a hiatus from it and go to their little mountain getaway. And as it happens, in that very moment when they're putting down all their social media, there's an alien invasion. Now, that as a premise, I will concede, is potentially very funny and cute. And if it were in the hands of, say, the Shaun of the Dead guys,
yeah,
or any of our other irreverent comic teams, if that were in the hands of say, Matt and Trey, I think I'd be on board. In this case, it's badly shot, underwritten, not really. I mean, it's so low budget that you never really believe it's an alien invasion. The whole thing just feels really, really undercooked. Like they thought, hey man, we got a great premise. We don't have to spend anything or do anything, and it winds up being a completely missed opportunity. It's really, really unfortunate. It's a total waste of time. I can't believe I actually sat there and watched it from beginning to end, which I shouldn't have done. But it was like a challenge. I was challenging myself. I'm like, see if you can do it. I dare you to stay awake, and somehow I did. So that's I've said more about that than has any right to be said.
That's funny. You said much more than you did in the actual review. I'm telling you, people go click on it and give that a go. Hey, wait, is this the 1960s 13 Ghosts, the William Castle film?
Oh, no, it is not.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, and this is a good point. We can hit these Shout Factory things right now because we got a bunch from Shout Factory. No, this 13 Ghosts unfortunately is not. This is
that would have been great.
This is the one from 2001. This is the 2001 kind of quasi remake directed by Steve Beck, which, to be honest, it's not terrible. It's just cheesy enough. And it's got Shannon Elizabeth in it from American Pie, so I mean, there's something to be said for that. Kind of a cute, audio commentary. I don't know if this. The weird thing about this is that it's got this weird kind of pseudo all-starish cast, like Tony Shalhoub, F. Murray Abraham, Matthew Lillard, like a lot of people who aren't anybody anymore. But Tony Shalhoub is obviously, he doesn't do like anchor films anymore. Really, he's a TV guy. So I mean, it's like so it does feel like a little bit like a time capsule, even though I hate to believe that 20 years ago was a time capsule. But yeah, I mean, it's all right. It's got new interviews with Shannon Elizabeth and John DeSantis, which is fine. And an audio commentary, which is fine. But I mean, people either love it or don't. So knock yourselves out. Here's the other stuff we got from Shout Factory and Scream Factory. Got collector's edition of Ghost Ship, which I think actually has some pretty cool moments in it. This is also directed by Steve Beck, same director as 13 Ghosts, who does a better job here because he has some better actors.
Yeah.
He does. I mean, you got Gabriel Byrne and Isaiah Washington and Ron Eldard and Juliana Margulies. Better cast. On balance, much better cast. Less campy, especially Juliana Margulies, who really, really nails it. And it's a haunted ship thing. I mean, it's we've seen that a lot. It's as common as a haunted house, but it pulls off. Tales from the Dark Side, the movie collector's edition. I had forgotten this even existed.
Wow, yeah, I remember that series.
Yeah, this was from 1990. Man, this is 30 years old. It's crazy. No, I'm like, gosh, that's when we met.
I may have done the junket for that movie.
Yeah, I mean, this was right about that time. Here's the weird part of this. So the source material of Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, you think, okay, Tales from the Dark Side, the TV show. No, but they went. It's not based on the TV show per se. Here's what they say as far as the actual stories that are in here. And this is, kind of impressive. Lot 249 was written by Michael McDowell, inspired by a story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Hmm.
All right, great. Cat from Hell, screenplay by George Romero, based on a short story by Stephen King. Not bad, right?
Good lineage.
And Lover's Vow, screenplay by Michael McDowell, period. So, same guy. But you're like, all right, fair enough. Michael McDowell's a really good screenwriter. Romero's awesome. Conan Doyle, Stephen King, very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Dick Smith, the legendary makeup guy, weighs in. Yeah, I mean, it's better than the TV show. I can't say I love this movie, but it certainly ages well. And then there have been a billion Phantom of the Operas made, one by Dario Argento, which is absolutely relentlessly awful. The original is still always the best. But there is something to be said for the Hammer version, which is also out now from Scream Factory, which was directed by Terence Fisher, great director of the period, did a lot of Hammer stuff, and written by John Elder. There is something to be said about this. It's a little bit different. It takes a kind of a sideways twist on it versus the silent version. And Herbert Lom plays the lead in this, who's always been really, really good. I think it's worth revisiting. I really do. So this is this is from 1962, that great legendary year that we talked about with Stephen Farber in his book some months ago. And I would say this is good for people to revisit, even if you don't, you kind of are fed up with all the remakes of it. This is one you might want to check out. Great audio commentary here by Steve Haberman, of filmmaker and Condé Nast, and Troy Howarth again, and Nathaniel Thompson do an audio commentary as well, and then a bunch of featurettes and a cut version from television, which takes us to Kiss of the Vampire Collector's Edition.
Oh.
This is from the Universal Library. I don't know how they got this, but this is also from 1962, and it's John Elder also wrote this. This is again a Hammer film, but somehow it belongs to Universal now, and I don't quite know how that happened. But different director here, Don Sharp. This is not a great Hammer film. It's about a honeymooning couple that run into a family of vampires, and you can kind of fill in the rest. But it dates. It feels like it doesn't feel like a Hammer film. It just feels a little cheesy and exploitation-y, and like something. It feels like a Frankie and Annette movie that went wrong. And then lastly, on the Hammer end, or not the Hammer end, the Shout Factory end.
Yeah.
2 more volumes in the Universal Horror Collection, volumes 5 and 6, which are going pretty deep in the Universal horror films. There's nothing left of the Frankenstein and Mummy and Wolfman and Dracula stuff. So now we are down to, in volume 5, The Monster and the Girl, which is a monkey movie, big giant gorilla. Captive Wild Woman, which is another gorilla movie. And then Jungle Woman and Jungle Captive. These are all a little bit silly, and I think you really have to be a huge, huge fan of the studio and the genre to really go to this. These are all from the 1940s, and then in volume 6, it gets a little bit better. These are some interesting films. Black Castle, Cult of the Cobra, The Thing That Couldn't Die, and The Shadow of the Cat. These are getting a little bit more interesting because by now we're into the 50s and 60s. And there's a change in the way that monster movies and genre movies and exploitation films were done once you get into the 50s. It's post-nuclear. So everything is kind of a post-nuclear, post-World War II allegory. When it's during World War II, you want to escape from World War II. They're not commenting on after the nuclear bombs. Now there's a whole new thing. So it's really interesting to look at them through that kind of a lens. Some very good audio commentaries on here, especially on Cult of the Cobra, with Tom Weaver, Steve Cronenberg, David Schechter, and Robert J. Kiss. And then an audio commentary with Tom Weaver and Courtney Joyner on The Thing That Couldn't Die. Those are the ones I think are the best here. And then you also have, some good stuff, some featurettes, an interview with an actress, and an audio commentary on The Shadow of the Cat, and an audio commentary with Tom Weaver on The Black Castle as well. So, Universal Horror Collection, volumes 5 and 6. Anything else, Tim, on your end that you want to recommend?
Well, I was looking at this Blumhouse collection, this Blumhouse 10 horror movie collection. This seems pretty
Yeah.
damn cool, man. Blumhouse, they when they blew in, they just cultivated or perhaps tapped into a dynamic,
Yep.
and they sort of worked their way up the scale from some really sort of like B-level stuff, right up to Get Out, which is a part of this 10 movie collection. So, you got Get Out on this thing here. You got Happy Death Day. You got The Purge, Ouija. The Boy Next Door, Unfriended, The Visit, Split, and the Truth or Dare movie, and that movie Ma with Olivia Spencer.
Yeah.
Interesting. Next, actually tomorrow morning, I'm going to be taping for Friday a horror movie, a black horror noir movie
Ooh, cool.
section. For film week, and just about all of these movies, we're going to be talking about. I think I sent you an email a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, that's pretty exciting right there. Anything? I mean, other than the 10 movies, what else did you get?
No, I mean there are featurettes and some commentaries, alternate endings, deleted scenes, a lot of I mean there's a lot of stuff in here. The thing that I think is really cool is that it's you get the Movies Anywhere codes, so
Oh,
you can immediately add these to your Movies Anywhere account, and they'll populate across your Vudu and your Google Play and everything else. So I mean, and then so everybody in the house can watch them on any TV in the house, and you can have them running on all the TVs in the house if you have a lot of TVs, and then you can really freak people out. I mean, I think this is a great collection too. I mean, there aren't many ringers in here. They're all kind of classic Blumhouse
well,
movies.
they're all hits. I mean, they're all depending on exactly when they appear in the canon. They're all effective within the context of the scale that they existed. I mean, obviously, Get Out is at the top of the.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think The Purge, Get Out, Happy Death Day, and Ma are worth the price of purchase alone.
Mhm.
Those four. And everything else has a profile too. But yeah, that's not bad at all. You get out on Movies Anywhere. We also have another collection. It's not as good as that. It's 10 frightening films. A Deadly Place. This is from Mill Creek, and they went and got 10 kind of second tier but passable films. You can put this on during a party or something. There's nothing here that anybody's really going to go nuts for. Most of this is 90s. A couple of them are 80s. One in the after 2000. There's one from the 1970s. But here are some of the titles: Cardiac Arrest, Fred Ward and Max Gale. The Dead Hate the Living with Eric Clausen and Jamie Donahue. Shrunken Heads with Meg Foster from 1994.
I love that movie.
It's not bad. It's not.
That's so much fun.
That's got a Haitian voodoo thing going.
Yeah.
You might want to add that to your list too.
Yeah.
Tunnels with Catherine Bach and John Saxon from 1988. Grimm with from 1995 with Emmanuel Zouareb, and Day of the Animals. That's the only one from the 1970s. That doesn't date terribly well, but it's still kind of fun because it's got an environmental plot to it. It's got Leslie Nielsen and Linda Day George. It's rated PG. It's far and away the least offensive of any of these. It's the idea here is that the ozone layer has become so depleted that once animals get above 5,000 feet, they go bananas. They go crazy.
I love it.
Yeah. So you naturally you got this issue where these hikers just happen to be at the wrong altitude at the wrong time, man. So anyway, that's 10 frightening films, A Deadly Place from Mill Creek.
Cool. There's this one called Bloody Massacre, and I chose it because the lead is David Naughton. And this is kind of a neat movie anyway. It's about this guy played by David Naughton, who's this used to be was a young wonderkin horror director. Now he's this older guy because David Naughton is an older guy. We think about David Naughton.
And what's this called again?
Bloody Massacre.
Oh, Bloody Massacre.
Brutal Massacre, a comedy. Brutal Massacre.
Brutal Massacre
is the name of it. Brutal Massacre, a comedy. Yeah, get that straight. Anyway, so David Naughton is playing this director. So it's a movie within a movie kind of thing. He's this horror guy, and he gets one last chance to make a good horror film. called Brutal Massacre, and everything goes wrong because during the making of the horror film, it's a brutal massacre. All of that's fine, but what I love is that it's David Naughton from American Werewolf in London, and from the Dr. Pepper commercials of my youth. And David is 74.
No.
No, he's born in 51, so he's 69. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
69, still too old. But nevertheless, 51, right? So yeah, 51. Yeah. So anyway, David Naughton in another horror movie, still starring, still the lead.
How far away is Tom Cruise from 60?
Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise and I are the same age, so Tom Cruise is 59.
Okay.
Yep.
It's gonna be a very depressing day for me.
Yeah. Well,
not for you, yeah, you're eternally youthful to me, and I guess so is Tom Cruise. But somehow that will hit me like a ton of bricks.
No, like a ton of bricks, like a ton of bricks. There's just one called Uncle Peckerhead here.
Yeah,
you got to tell me if there's anything on this box. It's about a punk band. They go into blah blah blah. They end up with this demon, a man-eating demon called Uncle Peckerhead. But he makes the band really really popular. But what are you going to do?
that's great.
When a man-eating demon joins your band.
Not much by way of extras. There's some trailer, cast and crew commentary, and then there is a short film and a music video from the Uncle Peckerhead universe.
Oh, wicked cool. And then there's this one called Haunt, which is actually cool because it's an actual Halloween movie. It's a movie set in a haunted house on Halloween. It's one of those movies where the haunted house stuff, one of these big sort of gigantic haunted house things, and it turns out that the
creepy clown here on the artwork.
Yeah, the haunts are real. The haunts are real. They're not.
Produced by Eli Roth.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it is.
Quiet Place. Yeah, I love the tagline on this. What are you carving this Halloween? Oh no, there are a ton of extras on this thing. Audio commentary with the actors, featurettes galore, interviews, another audio commentary with the writers and directors, and a short film. That's pretty loaded up. And speaking of Eli Roth also has our television entry this week, which is season 1 of Eli Roth's History of Horror. Not bad, man. Really not bad. We have mixed feelings about Eli Roth. We've all interviewed him on occasion too. And, he can be a little bit excessively gory in his own films. But I would say this: he definitely is a scholar of the genre.
Yeah.
And so this is a really really interesting season. A lot of great interviews here. It goes not just into the history of horror films, but the impact of horror films and their relevance. Why are they important? Because they are very easy to dismiss. We make fun of them a lot, and but yet they are the most profitable genre by far. Mm-hmm. Why is that? So he gets into that. Why are horror films popular? Why do people like to be afraid? It's very interesting. A lot of great interviews and people here. Everybody from Roger Corman and Joe Dante and Stephen King to Tarantino and Edgar Wright, Diablo Cody, John Landis. It's great. A lot of great stuff. And some little extended featurettes as well. So from AMC Studios on Blu-ray, Eli Roth's History of Horror Season 1. Very, very highly recommended.
What Game of Death is the one in the stacks? What game?
Oh, the Game of Death. That is obviously not the Bruce Lee Game of Death. Let me dive in. I'll get right to that in just a second because that's actually worth talking about. But I wanted to hit some foreign titles really quickly.
Oh, okay.
Animated film from Leon and Cochina, which is a kind of borrows a lot from Czech animation. It is really, really super creepy, bizarre, weird. This is a Chilean, Spanish language, but Chilean animated film, and it's got a little bit of German in it. It's about a girl who escapes from this crazy German kind of cult group and winds up taking refuge in this abandoned house where she is befriended by a couple of pigs. And then it gets weird, like really weird. And it might be the actual scariest movie that you see this week. The Wolf House by Leon and Cochina. I have never seen any other movies that this team has done, but I want to now. It's nuts.
Is it as scary as Deerskin?
Oh, dude, I'll pull Deerskin right out now. No, Deerskin is scarier.
Yeah.
Man, this is deranged. You want to talk about Deerskin?
Oh, well, you go ahead and start. It's I saw that one for Jean Dujardin. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's this
So
movie.
Quentin Dupieux, who directed this, is super edgy and really kind of hardcore. And Jean Dujardin can go dark if he needs to, and when he's funny and dark, it just makes the whole thing absolutely terrifying. I thought this was going to be really, really hilarious, and it is kind of for a minute,
Yeah.
and then it goes sideways in like a man bites dog kind of way. It's super short; it's under 80 minutes. Thank God I couldn't have taken it anymore. I love Jean Dujardin, but not when he does this. Dujardin plays a guy basically who has this strange obsession with this old kind of Western cowboy buckskin, fringy deerskin coat.
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, then he becomes, he becomes friends with this character played by Adele Haenel, and decides to kind of make a movie about himself. Dude, take it away.
Oh, and he's pretending to be a filmmaker. She assumes that he's a filmmaker, but he's not, and she
Yeah.
sort of buys into it, and she sort of becomes this de facto producer. But the dynamic is this: it becomes unclear who is in charge of things, him or the coat.
Yeah.
Because he starts talking to the coat now, but it's not. But it's like it's in.
It's not like a possession.
No, yeah.
He's something screwy in the head.
Yeah, so he's gone.
Yeah.
We never actually hear the coat, but they have these, it's and the next thing people start dying, and that's and you just don't see the movie going there
No.
from where the movie begins. He is this sort of obsessive guy who has this obsession with this woman. But yeah, man, and what the hell?
Totally agree. We got another one here from Film Movement, Zombie Child by Bertrand Bonello, which is, this made a run around the film festivals, and this is the more legit arty kind of horror film. This is a Haitian, well, not a Haitian film per se, but it takes place in Haiti. It's a French film. It takes place in Haiti in the 1960s, where a man is legitimately brought back as a zombie from the dead and then made into a field worker. And then you flash forward a half a century to the 90s, or it's like, no, it's
Yeah, it is.
Is it the 90s or is it after 2000? And I think it's after 2000. You flash forward. I think it's after the year 2000. And there's now there's a connection to it that's happening in a French boarding school with this young Haitian teenager. Won't give you how it all kind of ties together, but it's really, really, really well done, and it has a cool short film on it as well, and an audio commentary by Bertrand Bonello. It's worth checking out. Zombie Child.
It's sort of like a quasi true story. The stuff about the guy,
is it?
What happened to him is true.
Is it?
Yeah. If you look up that guy's a real guy, and you'll find a whole Wikipedia page about him and how he was taken and he was quote unquote turned into a zombie. Now there's this thing that happened to them.
The title will tell you roughly where this is going, but yeah.
Yeah, and he's gone and then one day he's able to sort of overcome what has happened to him, and he returns to his family 20 years later after working in these fields, quote unquote, as a zombie. That all actually happened.
And zombie here is spelled with no E. It's Zombi, by the way. We're going to look it up. The interesting thing about this movie is it is very much an allegory, and it's an allegory about the degree to which the things we do and the things that are done to us may be visited on our posterity. I'll leave it there, but it's a very interesting film. Coma, no, not the Cronenberg Coma. Unfortunately, this is a German film called Coma, and it's about this guy who has an accident, and then he wakes up from his coma, and the world has changed, and everything is weird, and the laws of physics don't work anymore, and it's all dystopian and post-apocalyptic, and he now has to sort of figure out what happened and what to do about surviving in this world.
It's like he went into a coma and at the end of 2018
yeah,
and woke up like now.
Not exactly. This is kind of like, let me see if I can find a good way to do this. This is a little bit like Memento meets Omega Man meets The Road Warrior meets some kind of a Christopher Nolan movie, other than Memento. Yeah, it's on Blu-ray. And let's do the giveaway now.
Okay.
So we got a cool movie as a giveaway. We're giving away 3 copies of Broil from Wellgo. Broil is really cool. Perfect Halloween movie. It's scary, not too scary. Directed by Edward Drake. And here's the idea. You got a teenage girl who goes to live with her grandpa and on his great big kind of weird, freaky gothic estate. And there's things are not as they should be, and of course there's some weird crap with the family, like there's an ancient family kind of a culty thing going on, and enter a hitman who comes in at exactly the right time with exactly the right attitude to help the girl out. I think this is a cool, and the title will tell you a lot. Broil. I'm telling you, it's got a lot of fun. It's got a lot of fun for like haunted, culty movies in this genre. Like, it's a little bit of Rosemary's Baby, a little bit of a lot of things, but it's really, really fun. And we're giving away 3 copies. So go ahead and email us, and we'll be giving these away until November 5th. So as long as you get it to us by November 5th. Gods@DigiGods.com, gods@cinegods.com. Put the word broil in the title. Broil, BROIL. And name and address in the body of the email, and get it to us by November 5th, and we'll send 3 copies out. We'll let you know. Let's see. What else we got here? Anything that you see?
Well, up in the exploitation films, I think some of the Italian, Spanish films, I see The Lady Kills, 1971. Jean-Louis Bell film. I remember this film for whatever reason. It was like it was like a young couple killing spree movie that we would get a few of in the 90s. That Oliver Stone film, the other one with Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis.
Yep.
Where this is just literally the same thing. 1971 film. This young couple, and they're killing like men, like terrible men who try to do stuff to her and whatnot. But that's what they're basically doing. In that movie, a full, I don't know, whatever, 20 years before they did them here in the United States. That was very interesting. So anything on that box, that would be unfortunate.
There's not really, but there is a second feature from 1972 from the same director called Pervertissima.
Okay.
which I did not watch. I've read a little bit about Pervertissima, so I can't vouch for how it's described, but it is presumably a combination between a Mondo movie and a mad scientist movie. Sounds completely crazy and unhinged, but you get 2 there. As long as you tapped into that one, let me make quick mention of that's from the Mondo Macabre library, and there are 3 others from that too. There's the Japanese film Gemini by Shinya Tsukamoto, which is Japanese horror has always been difficult, and this is an early J horror film from the late 90s, 1999. Tsukamoto is the guy that did Tetsuo. So you kind of know where that's coming from. This takes place in Tokyo in 1910, and it's about this guy who takes over his dad's medical practice, and pretty soon everything in his world and his relationships begins to deteriorate, and suddenly he's face to face with a killer, and there are all kinds of secrets revealed. And it gets increasingly dark and depressing and horrifying and nasty. It's pretty much a Shinya Tsukamoto movie. We also have Satanico Pandemonium, which is pretty much what you would expect of a Mexican horror film from 1975. I mean, that's exactly what it is. The color of the blood isn't right. The costumes, the acting is completely overwrought. The costumes are completely overplayed. They all look like they were dug out of some chest for Halloween costumes. Everything is really silly, but the transfer is phenomenal. They went back to the original elements for this, transferred it all from the original negatives, and on Blu-ray it just pops. It's crazy. Like the blood is so red, it almost makes your eyes hurt. Really, it's very, so it's worth watching just because there's kind of a funky camp factor to it. Anyway, then we also have, lastly, from Mondo Macabro, is An Ideal Place to Kill by Umberto Lenzi. This is an Italian-French co-production from 1971, kind of the same period. A little bit more legit, not quite as ostentatious and campy, but it's still kind of, it still dates, but it dates in sort of a cool way. And Lenzi is famous because he made Cannibal Ferox, which is a totally, it was banned all over the world. This is not that shocking. But this also is a very, very nice transfer, and basically, it's has a little kind of Scandinavian porn sidebar to it, as a lot of these films did, so that you would get a little bit of nudity and gore all together in the same film. And Irene Pappas shows up for some strange reason, and I can't figure out why, but there it is, An Ideal Place to Kill.
There's one here that I see that I got to talk about a little bit. It's called Carnival Magic. And it's a 1983 film directed by a guy named Adamson, who went back 1,000 years.
The exploitation king.
On the exploitation, yeah. He went back to like, I don't know, whatever, the middle 30s, and worked until about the middle 90s. He passed away in the middle 90s. And he is one of those old guys that I happened to interview way back in like 1992, 3, 4, or 5, or whatever the hell it happened to be. And in 1983, though, he made this movie, Carnival Magic, which I happen to have seen in 1983, which is why I wanted to talk to him in 1993 because one of those things. And so this movie was like this really, really sort of wacky, but sort of interesting movie just in what it's about. It's about this guy who's a magician who joins a carnival. He has this chimp, right? The thing about them is this: he can actually read minds and levitate people. So the act is really great because he can read, and the chimp can talk, except that the chimp can actually talk.
So what was it in the 60s and 70s that people were obsessed with monkeys and chimps? Like gorillas and chimps in movies all over the 60s and 70s. I mean, I don't get it. Like women having sex with gorillas.
Oh man, and they were hyper bright, and it was horny gorillas and apes and all those reasons. Insane.
So much. It's crazy.
That's just crazy. Anyway, it's just the wackiest premise for a movie. The lion guy, the lion tamer guy, sort of like catches on that that monkey can really talk and kidnaps a monkey. So it's totally wacky movie. Anyway, this guy, he's just one of those old guys, and just cheesy horror films across his entire career. But it's a long, long, long-lived career that goes right up until he dies in 1995. His last movie was 1994. So that's what I'm talking about, baby. That's the way to do it. So anyway, Al Adamson.
So you mentioned Game of Death earlier. So yes, we have Game of Death out from MVD Visual. This Game of Death is not the Bruce Lee Game of Death. Let's underline that. This is a brand new movie from Cleopatra Entertainment by way of MVD, and it is a horror comedy that is not especially horrifying, not especially funny, but it's horrifying and funny enough in fits and starts to actually make it worth watching. I do think this has a lot of fun stuff in it. This is about a bunch of kids who play this game that they call Game of Death. And they think it's just a board game, but then it turns out that it isn't. and it's not. I think they're very conscious of all the Ouija movies. All the Ouija movies that kind of do something similar, where people get together in like an old house and go, "Let's play with the Ouija board," and of course, then things go wrong. So I think it means to riff on that a little bit, but it kind of goes its own way, and it has all kinds of really, really funny moments and some very, very good casting. It's a young cast; they're all very talented. I think you'll see more of them over the next few years. I want to also make quick mention of a couple of Kino titles here from the Kino Studio Classics line, which deserve a little push during Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Curse of the Undead is a really, really underrated 1959 horror film that deserves to be rediscovered. This was, talking about universal horror. This is one that I had forgotten even existed. I saw this when I was a kid. Tom Weaver, whom we've mentioned doing a lot of these audio commentaries, he also does an audio commentary here. Very, very cool. So if you've ever seen Hondo, the John Wayne film Hondo, Michael Pate, who's also in that film, plays a vampire gunfighter. And it's that alone is so cool, because the idea of combining horror with other genres, the West in this case, making a Western, a gunfighter film, and adding the vampire mix to it, it was totally unique at the time.
Yeah.
And it's really, again, it's kind of an allegory. But in this case, the guy who's terrorizing the town because he is undead, if you contextualize it alongside other Westerns of the period, the idea that the guy who kills is undead is a really, really interesting little paradox that turns the Western genre on its head. And there are all kinds of scenes and really great lines of dialogue here that they're very, very smart. So I would recommend Curse of the Undead. It's a cool little rediscovery from that post-nuclear genre period of the 1950s. Next is The Face at the Window by George King, starring Todd Slaughter. This is from 1939. It won't go down as one of the great films of 1939, but it takes place in Paris in 1880. And there may be some. I didn't research this. There may be some truth behind this story, but it reminds me a little bit of some of the German films like M, that deal with serial killers and child killers and whatnot. And what's going on here is that there's a serial killer roaming around with a particularly horrifying demeanor and a horrifying way of killing his victims. And you drop a couple of a few other interesting characters into the mix who may or may not be on the killer's list, and it winds up being kind of an Agatha Christie film meets a German expressionist horror film. And this was made in England. It's a British film. George King is a British director, so it has a little bit of the British Gothic thing going for it as well. So little Agatha Christie, little Conan Doyle, a little bit of German Fritz Lang expressionism. And it's really, really, it's got a lot of cool moods. So, not one of the more famous films from 1939, but worth checking out. The Face at the Window.
Good.
Let's see.
There's this one that I saw again up here in the exploitation films you sent me.
Yeah.
The Revenge of the Living Dead Girls, which was a French film with an Italian version from 1987, which I vaguely remember. It was in that whole run of zombie movies, or it was that whole run of revival of zombie movies. The Night of the Living Dead movies were coming, were getting into their Chud and things like that. And this one was about some chemical company that dumps some stuff some place and gets into the cemetery, and then all these next thing you got zombie girls running around killing folks. But it was really one of those movies that wasn't about that at all. It was about corruption, because that's what those movies started to do. They started to become about whatever the zeitgeist was of the day, but those movies were about corporate corruption. These corporations, and that's and then they get their comeuppance for the stuff that they were doing, and that's what this one was doing. They're not like these fantastic movies or anything like that, but it is interesting that those movies started to work their way from being just monster movies to being movies that had some sort of commentary about society that they wanted to make by the time you get to these movies here.
I got I'm going to go through a couple, 2 pairs here. So we got 2 from Artsploitation, who always comes up with really, really cool, newish genre films. And the first one is The Dead Ones, which has the very telling tagline, "High school is hell." And The Dead Ones is from the same director who did the Attic Expeditions. If you ever saw that, which was not bad. His name's Jeremy Kasten. Anyway, this is kind of like I want to say the Breakfast Club gone way wrong, like really, really wrong. These kids are on they're kind of not bad kids. They're just kind of misguided kids, and they're on summer detention, and unfortunately, detention means that they are they wind up not being in the world where it is safe. They are now suddenly alone, and they're being pursued and by some pretty awful people. Not just one, but like a pretty messed up bunch of people. So it's a little bit like The Hills Have Eyes crossed with The Breakfast Club, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. The one I find most interesting is Dead Dicks. So the title, which is meant to grab you, and the funny thing is, it's called Dead Dicks because the guy's name is Richard or Richie. So Dick being short for Richard, but Dead Dicks is meant to catch your attention. Go Dead Dicks, oh my gosh! So no, get your mind out of the gutter. Here's what this is going on. So this guy Richie is suicidal, and his girlfriend runs over to on a particular moment when she's afraid that he's gonna off himself, and finds him surrounded by his own corpses, many of them. So what happens is that every time he kills himself, it generates a dead body.
Ugh.
He can't kill himself, but he keeps generating his own corpses, right? It's a really interesting, weird concept, and I don't know that it fully pays it off. And because it is mostly contained in one apartment, you can tell that they were looking for like a weird idea that they could pull off on the slide. This is a Canadian film, by the way. Directors are Chris Bavoda and Lee Paula Springer, who do a very good job and explain a lot in the audio commentary that really helps you kind of get inside this. But ultimately, it is an allegory, and it's meant to sort of comment on a lot of Cronenbergian anxiety that seems to come from north of the border that doesn't necessarily generate south of the border. But Dead Dicks, definitely worth checking out. The other one is The Dead One, both of those from Artsploitation. And then from Vestron Video, speaking of Cronenberg, these great throwback collector series kind of VHS retro movies is David Cronenberg's Shivers, which is kind of a lesser known Cronenberg film for a lot of people. Yeah, this is from 1975, when Cronenberg was kind of still in an exploitation vein, but also had something to say. He does an audio commentary on this, and it's great. It makes the film so much better than it otherwise would be. Because Shivers is not a terribly good film, but it's got a lot of great Cronenberg elements, and you see him kind of working up what he's going to be and what he's going to do in his future films. There's also an audio commentary with Don Carmody, the producer, and tons of interviews and featurettes. So not a great film, but in the context of everything that's on it, it is definitely worth checking out. And then Fred Savage and Howie Mandel and Little Monsters, not at all scary. It's just, a silly movie. But it was a fun thing from 1989 when it was made.
I remember that.
Yeah, right. I mean, he plays a kid in elementary school. Fred Savage does. He's kind of new to the town, and he makes friends with the monster under his bed, and that kind of makes it all okay. And Howie Mandel plays the monster in makeup. I mean, it's it's okay. It's kind of it's like E.T. with Howie Mandel in makeup.
Exactly, exactly. I got to call out one, man, that I had forgotten about. And I actually remember seeing this movie in 1974, The Beast Must Die. It's sort of an amalgamation of movies. But the thing that's great, Peter Cushing in the movie. But the thing that's great about the movie is that the wonderful actor, African American actor Calvin Lockhart, was the actual lead of this movie. And,
Ooh.
and it's basically a werewolf movie. But the way the story was set up is like this: this guy that Calvin was playing, rich businessman, actually owns an island, huge estate on an island. And through a whole bunch of complicated machinations, he's come to figure out that one of some, I don't know, 6 or 7 people are a werewolf. And he invites them to the estate and he kind of shuts them down there. And he knows that eventually one of them will give away that they are the werewolf. And all of these people, none of these people are great shakes. But one of them is a werewolf, and then he's going to hunt the werewolf. The hook of this movie, back when it opened, right? It was kind of a drive-in movie kind of thing. I remember my dad took us to see. Was that at the beginning of the movie, the audience is invited to try to figure out who the werewolf is, and it's constructed in such a way that they give you these very sort of pointed clues, and then at the end of the movie, it took like this they called it the werewolf break.
Right.
And everybody could just sit, the audience in the movies, in the theaters, whatever, talk about who do you think the werewolf? Who do you think the werewolf is? And everybody, and then the movie started back up, and so it was very clever, and in all of these sort of ways, which I thought was kind of cool. But the thing that I love most about the movie is that it starred the brother Calvin Lockhart in 1974 in a horror film, sort of werewolf horror film that wasn't really at all in any way, shape, or form about race. In 1974. It was just this straight ahead horror film. And they could have, that could have been Steve McQueen or whoever the hell.
He was in was he in Cotton?
Yeah, Cotton Comes to
Cotton
Harlem.
Super Holland? Yeah.
The great Calvin Lockhart.
I remember.
Died young. Calvin Lockhart, gorgeous guy, but not actually didn't die that young. I think that Calvin was around for a while. I was thinking of Cleon Little.
Oh yeah.
Who died young. No, Calvin was around for a long time. Calvin was in Predator 2.
Oh wow.
Calvin's one of those bad guys in Wild at
Yeah,
Heart.
he is in Predator 2. He is in Predator 2.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me. And of course he was a really bad guy, and Let's Do It Again. A great career, Calvin Lockhart.
I got a little bit of trivia for you, by the way, on The Beast Must Die. You know who shot that thing? The cinematographer?
Who?
Jack Hildyard of Bridge in the River Kwai.
Oh, get out!
Yeah.
What a good-looking movie. There you go.
I got a few Blu-rays here that we'll go through real quickly. Nail in the Coffin: The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. For those who don't know who Vampiro is, he's a big in the wrestling world. And this is a documentary that gets into basically who Vampiro is, and what where he came from, and what makes him different. And it's pretty dark and pretty intense. And if you're going to pick a documentary for Halloween, that's the one you should probably go with, because it suits. Almost like a documentary is Jeremy Renner in his star-making role in Dahmer, where he is Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, who would ever want to play that part? But young Jeremy Renner nailed it, and that's what kind of put him on the map. I don't know if the movie dates terribly well. It's and I don't know that many people really want to revisit Jeffrey Dahmer, but 18 years ago, that's where Jeremy Renner came from, and he did a great job, and he may have won an Emmy for this too.
I think that I was thinking that myself.
Yeah,
I was thinking that myself.
And then we've also got The Pale Door, which is pretty great. Pale Door is another Western horror thing. This is made for Shudder, the horror streaming operation, and this is kind of a it's a revisionist look at the Dalton Gang story, in which the idea of a ghost town is literally a ghost town. Where they get to this ghost town, and there's a coven of witches who are operating there, and it's the Dalton Gang meets the supernatural, and it's done very, very well. It's not cheesy. It honors the whole Western tradition. It's very well shot, and it's quite well written as well. So I will recommend The Pale Door among the more legit films that we're talking about this week. And then Snow White, A Tale of Terror with Sigourney Weaver and Sam.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this is from when was this? When did they do this? This is I want to say late '90s, maybe. Anyway, it was a while ago. So anyway, it's a kind of a horror take on Snow White with Sigourney Weaver, and she's very good in it, and Sam Neill is very good in it. And it doesn't.
97 it was, man.
97. That's what I thought. Late 90s. Yeah, feels like about 20 years ago. But of the Snow White films that deviate from Disney, this is the one that has the courage to deviate the most. A couple of other ones. Spooky House was utterly silly. I don't know why Ben Kingsley did this, but he did. I don't know why anybody did this. Mercedes Rule is in this as well. But I mean, it's this is. I think this is also probably from the late 90s. This is another one of those movies that kind of tried to play up the horror comedy thing at the time. But really, what you're doing is you're watching it just because Ben Kingsley is totally out of his element with a ridiculously campy part. And then Tales from the Hood 3.
Yeah, man.
Which I can't believe that this got to that, but you know Rusty, don't you?
Oh yeah, Rusty Cundiff, way back to the day, all the way back to Brothers with Hats.
Fear of a Black Hat.
Fear of a Black Hat. Yeah, you're why I called it that. It's because when they first shot that movie on VHS, I was working for ITC, and ITC picked up that film, and that movie was called, for a moment, two other things. One of them was Brothers with Hats.
Yeah.
Came Fear of a Black Hat, sort of a play on Fear of a Black Planet, the MDI did. But the thing that it was called before they called it Brothers with Hats was what it is what they refer to it as in the movie. So when you watch the movie, they refer to it by its original name, which we can't say on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's the N-word with hats, right?
Yeah.
That's so funny. NWA. That's what that was the whole song.
Yeah.
And then for a little while there, we would walk around because the execs we got sick of us. Like, good look, guys, could you call the movie something else?
Funny.
And they say, okay, we'll call it Brothers with Hats. So we called it Brothers with Hats for a while. And eventually, Rusty figured out Fear of a Black Hat. That movie is still hysterical, by the way.
So funny. It's so beyond funny.
If you want to see Rusty and those guys and talking about horror, there's a doc that's running on, I think, Amazon Prime right now called Horror Noir. Horror Noir is the name of the doc, and Rusty's in the doc along with Ernest Dickerson, the great cinematographer and director of many films, and you got Tony Todd in the film, who played Candyman in 1990. So take a look and see that. It's kind of an interesting documentary that sort of aggregates a whole bunch of thought about black horror.
Well,
horror.
I'll tell you, Rusty Cundiff, he co-wrote, co-directed, and co-produced this with Darren Scott. But Rusty is just such a funny, clever man.
Yeah.
And even once you get, it's an anthology series, so they're always keeping it fresh. There's no sequel issues here. Tales from the Hood 3, still very, very funny, produced by Spike Lee, who I'm sure didn't set foot on the set once.
No.
Let's see what else we got. Let me hit these last four. We got 4 new Blu-rays here. Actually 5. So let me just go through these. And then we'll get into some of the exploitation stuff and then some things on Blu-ray. Or on DVD. To Your Last Death is kind of good. This is good sort of quasi-feminist. Oh man, how do you even get into this? This is just a kind of a crazy animated horror thing. This is made for Quiver, and it's basically a feminist revenge horror animated film. I don't know. There it is. There you go. But it's really cool. The artwork is great. The concept is cool. And the real reason that you're into this is for the voices. Ray Wise, Bill Moseley, Damian Haas, and William Shatner. William freaking Shatner. And then, I'm telling you, it's pretty great. To Your Last Death is the film. Check it out. It's funny and it's horrifying and it's just.
I even love the title.
Huh?
I even love the title.
Yeah. Sarah Michelle Gellar was in a movie called Possession, which was which was okay when it first came out. I mean, this is also, I want to say, 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of these feel like 90s. This was a Yari Film Group thing. Yeah, it's not, nothing particularly new. Kind of a standard possession movie, but because that Sarah Michelle Gellar in it, and she had done the two Grudge films, it had a little bit of traction. It's on Blu-ray. It's worth checking out. Let's see, Swallow on Blu-ray is this is a little bit more serious. This is from Shout and IFC. This is about a particular relationship that is, I don't want to say it's in the Rosemary's Baby vein, but it certainly goes to some of the same issues about kind of Stepford relationships, Stepford marriages. That's kind of what it's commenting on in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it treats it in a similarly delicate way, a similarly kind of rose-colored way, until that obligatory moment when everything kind of starts to degenerate and go completely haywire. And it's it's a little bit more intellectual and psychological than I think I would have wanted. I kind of wanted it to go Polanski crazy in a way at a certain point,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily. But it comes close. So that's probably, if you do like that kind of a thing, that might be the closest to Polanski we have this week. And that movie is Swallow. Let's see. The Other Lamb was an IFC film. That's kind of most of these movies that deal with cults and religious enclaves and whatnot. What was the Swedish film from like 2 years ago? Midsommar.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
Ari, what's his name? Film.
Ari Aster, right?
Aster, yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was way too long. That thing is like at least 45 minutes, way too long.
All of Ari's films fall into the category of films I appreciate more than films that I like.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I kind of feel the same way. Anyway, this is kind of a similar sort of a thing. This commune that's like a retrograde commune that lives as if it's in the 19th century and whatnot. But it goes into a Midsommar kind of direction, but in a more measured, sensible way. So if you like those kinds of films, it's called The Other Lamb. And then lastly, here is a movie called Starfish, which I don't even know how to describe this. This is about interdimensional monsters and like it's a completely very, very strange. It's like a Japanese horror film. I want to say it's a little bit like The Ring in some respects. But there's just no other way to describe it. The movie's called Starfish, and it is just absolutely it's just very, very strange. It's very strange. It's literally inexplicable.
Yeah.
But check it out. This did well at a lot of festivals, including Fantastic Fest, and it's very claustrophobic. It's about a woman trapped in an apartment and interdimensional monsters, and you'll see. But honestly, sometimes you can't do better than that. Tim, let's go through some of these last remaining exploitation titles here.
Belzebuth.
Yeah.
There. It's sort of an interesting film there. So you have this guy. He's a detective. He's investigating a sort of classic school massacre sort of situation. Before you know it, the Vatican is involved because it looks like there's going to be a demon. Yep. And anyway, it's an interesting sort of amalgamation of these films. Actually, pretty taut is what it is. Mexican film, Mexican horror film. So interesting little movie there. I don't know if there's anything on that box that would make it
No,
useful
absolutely nothing.
to take a look at there.
Absolutely.
Then we have another one of these movies. It's just sort of taking advantage of a title, so it's called the Amityville Harvest. It has nothing whatsoever to do with any of the Amityville movies that you're thinking about right now.
They just put the word Amityville in there because
Word
it sells.
Amity in it. Amityville, yeah, and that's and look, you probably end up getting now. This thing is pulling a solid 3 on the old IMDb. So generally speaking, some documentarians go out to this mansion. They're going out there for an entirely different reason. They're investigating a history of liquor smuggling. The mansion had from the way back in the 30s or whatever it is. But there's this guy who happens to be there, and they get involved in this whole thing that has to do with him. But again, a 3. So I'm not gonna. It's not like I'm recommending it. I'm just telling you that it's there. Wade, what the hell is Let It Snow? A total Christmas movie, Christmas rom-com.
Yeah. So let it snow.
Yeah.
Here we go again. This is. I mean, it's just Christmas horror movies. I don't know what's wrong with people, but yeah, Let It Snow. And here's another one of those great taglines. It's got basically a picture of a guy with an axe, and you can't see his face, and he's standing in the snow, and there's like a trail of bloody stuff and footprints. Anyway, the tagline is, "They were warned."
Well, they were.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, um, this is about a couple of goes for a snowboarding vacation in this European resort. And even though I don't know why people do this, like they are told, this is the "they were warned" thing, that there have been a lot of strange deaths lately on the trails around here. Oh, never mind. We'll be okay. We'll go snowboarding. Like, what's wrong with you? Can't you go snowboarding somewhere else? Like, if I go someplace, if I'm going on a hike, and there's like let's say an old witchy lady at the beginning of the trail that says, people die on this trail. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go find another trail.
Yeah, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that.
Anyway, so naturally, they stay there for some stupid reason, and then next thing you know, some guy on a snowmobile is attacking them and chasing them, and it turns into a survival thing. So there's a homicidal maniac out on the snowboarding slopes. That's the idea. Hey, you know what happens? Winding down here on the end, the 11th commandment. This is from Vinegar Syndrome. Bet you didn't know there was an 11th commandment, did you, Tim?
No, I did not.
Yeah, there's a good reason. It's not a good one. So
what else can we not do?
Oh, you don't want to know. So this is about a guy who has been committed to an insane asylum wrongly by his uncle, so that his uncle can abscond with his inheritance.
Yeah.
So I mean, right, it happens to everybody. And so basically the asylum makes him. He wasn't crazy when he went in, but he's a homicidal lunatic after not too long. And naturally, that makes getting revenge when he escapes very entertaining. Look out, Uncle Charles. So, and Uncle Charles is quite a character. So the 11th commandment is an unusual insanity / vengeance movie that kind of fell between the cracks. It was directed by Paul Lader, and this is, I think, from the late 80s, but it definitely ages well. I think it definitely ages well, and it's got a lot of extras on it, interviews, featurettes, fun stuff, and a reversible artwork insert.
Yeah.
Jess Franco made a movie called Neurosis, otherwise known as Revenge in the House of Usher, back in 1985. This is kind of a late Jess Franco entry, and it's just as cheesy as anything he ever made, but what's funny is that he integrated stuff that he shot over previous decades into this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all sliced together with a lot of outtakes of various things, and it surprisingly kind of sort of works. You can tell where he's doing that, but in a way, it kind of makes the whole thing even more insane. And of course, it has his usual sexual obsessions in it, but Jess Franco's Neurosis, Revenge in the House of Usher. If you're a Jess Franco fan, not entirely out of the, you'll probably enjoy it. Let me go through a few of these from Severin. We got a whole bunch from Severin, and we're running out of time here. So the Severin library has a lot of great exploitation titles from the past, including Satan's Slave, which has developed kind of a cult following over time. The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, Wardh. The Horrors of Spider Island is actually quite fun. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Tim.
No,
The Horrors
I
of
saw that one.
Spider Island. This is a German co-production from 1960, originally made as a movie called Body in the Web. This comes with two versions on it: the original version and the alternate U.S. version, which is considerably toned down. But it's actually kind of fascinating. It's sort of a nudist horror movie in many respects, and it was banned in the UK for a while. And but it's really it's pretty insane. They went back to Dusseldorf in Germany, found the original negative or the dupe negative, and they restored it and scanned it, and it looks absolutely pristine. The black and white photography is chilling. Horrors of Spider Island, a really interesting one. When the Wind Blows is a kind of a creepy apocalyptic animated film that also has kind of fallen out of favor and disappeared a little bit. It's really well worth rediscovering. The late Nick Redman does an audio commentary on this that you have to hear. It's absolutely superb. And there's a title song by David Bowie, and the score by Roger Waters.
Oh,
and the lead voices here are John Mills and Peggy Ashcroft. Really, really, great Dame Peggy Ashcroft, who won Best Supporting Actress for David Lean's final film, Passage to India.
Yeah.
And then the last few here from Severin, Lucio Fulci's Enigma, Aenigma, spelled Enigma. Again, kind of a classic 80s Lucio Fulci film. It's got, some decent effects in it. Another Jess Franco film called Shining Sex, which was just a total shameless attempt to capitalize on The Shining in 1975, which of course was a had been a book already.
Yeah.
And Stanley Kubrick's film was still some days off, but it's Shining Sex. Come on, it's Jess Franco just trying to make a buck or two. Fulci for Fake, which is a docudrama about Lucio Fulci.
Oh.
Not exactly, ideal. I mean, it's not scary or anything, but it's relatively interesting. I'm not a big Fulci fan, but another Lucio Fulci film called Demonia.
Oh, I reviewed that movie. That's like the early '90s.
Yeah, it's a what they call nunsploitation. Yeah. It's a horror film set in a convent. It's bloody, it's kind of silly, but for the genre, it's enjoyable. And then one called Blood and Flesh, which, speaking of Al Adamson, this is all about the career and the life of Al Adamson.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Which frankly is not as interesting as you would think.
Oh,
the movies are more interesting than the guy, but it's got its moments. It's got its moments. So let's see. We're down to the bottom here. Only got a few more left. Fear Farm. Tim, did you see Fear Farm?
I don't think I remember that one.
So Fear Farm is spelled P-H-A-R-M. Get it? Farm, like pharmaceutical. Yeah. This is basically it's kind of a riff off of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And not a terribly good one, but it has some it has some kind of meta moments in it that I think are maybe worth it for fans of the genre, fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. You might want to check it out just because it does kind of wink at you a little bit. Then we've got Killer Therapy, which is fine, I guess. This is a new film. This is DVD only. This is all about and this is another kind of a mentally disturbed youth movie, like about a kid with anger issues. I'm not fond of necessarily, I can take pretty much anything, but when they kind of take real life problems and try to exploit them in a way that doesn't necessarily comment on them in a meaningful way, I kind of feel there are too many disturbed kids out there to necessarily kind of make them the center of a horror film
Yeah.
without commenting on that. So I won't recommend that. I'll just only make mention of it.
Let's go see Joker.
Sorry, say again.
Everybody's just see Joker if you want to see that.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, speaking of Joker, the new we talked about the new Mel Gibson Santa Claus movie.
No, I don't think we did. Where's that streaming?
It's not out yet. It's out, I think, end of November. Is it? Which let me see when that exactly gets released. I watched it about a week ago. I don't remember if I said anything on the show about it. Let's see here. The trailer is hilarious. Actually, it's called Fat Man.
Fat Man. Okay.
And the trailer is hilarious. It looks really, really dark. Mel Gibson plays a nasty, vengeful Santa Claus who has to fight off a kid who's hired a hitman to take him out because he got a lump of coal one year in his stocking. That's that, right? That's the thing. This nasty kid. But watching it, I swear, I didn't laugh a lot. It's basically the Joker of Santa Claus movies. I'm like, damn, this is really. I was hoping for like Bad Santa, but this is something else entirely. I don't know how it's going to do. I really don't. I mean, it's good, but you're like, ooh.
It's a sort of weird juxtaposition from Mel, just because of the sort of that might be the problem there, but we'll see.
Let's see. Sarah Bolger in A Good Woman is Hard to Find. I love these titles. It's too funny. Sarah Bolger, who you might remember from Mayans on television and The Tudors. So she's a single mom. Her husband was killed, and she's can't let it go. She's trying to sort of deal with her now destitute life and piece everything back together again. And everything gets much darker than that. It doesn't get into anything supernatural, but it does get violent, and she's got to take matters into her own hands when life goes astray, and she's got to get all back together again. And next thing you know, it's very I spit on your grave territory. There it is.
My first memory of Sarah Bolger, I think, might be in America. Of that film. Which I think was a good 20 years ago too. Yeah, wonderful.
Yep. And then we've got Pit Stop, which is not the old exploitation era film Pit Stop. The Jack Hill, I think, directed the original Pit Stop. This is not that. This is a new movie about a bunch of kids who are having a rave and getting stoned, and next thing you know, somebody's killing them. Who's killing them? And there it is. Don't go to raves.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you about that one. It's a rave and people start dying. And then Reawakened, only watched a little bit of this just because it looked kind of intriguing. It's not nearly as intriguing as it looks from the marketing. This is one of those vacations turn into nightmare movies. And it's a possession thing too. She's like something about it, like there's the spirit of a witch that is haunting this woman, and it doesn't really pan out. But Reawakened, if you think your beloved might be walking around with the ancient spirit of a reincarnated witch floating around inside them, that's the movie for you. And then lastly, an Emily Harris directed movie from Film Movement called Carmilla, which
I saw that for
It's not bad, right? Yeah. It's based on a vampire novel I had never heard of from 1872.
Oh, well before Bram Stoker's Dracula.
That was interesting. It predates Dracula.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. About this teenage girl on this kind of country out in this country home, who has a very toxic relationship with her governess. And next thing you know, well, there's another young woman who is injured in some kind of an accident and winds up becoming kind of like a temporary foster sister to her, is maybe the way to put it. And it's not per se a horror film in the traditional sense, but it does feel a little bit like the only reason that I added it here was because it feels a little bit like an early, I mean, you know, it technically it's a vampire film,
Yeah.
but it's not scary vampire.
No.
It's just like spooky, right?
Yeah.
It,
It's as much energy sucking as anything else. Emily, I think, also directed what you reviewed it, not yeah, what, Radium Girls?
oh, did she do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's new. That's her new film.
Yeah.
Then I didn't realize that was the same director.
Yeah,
It's
that's
in fact pointing it out.
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what strikes me about this is that it's a little bit like the Jean Genet story, the real life story of the maids, which has been done. Sister My Sister is maybe the better version of that in the film. You know, the true story about the two sisters who have their incestuous relationship, and then they murder the woman that they work for. I'm sure everybody knows that story by now. Jean Genet wrote the play, and they've made a movie from the play, and they've made several movies from the actual story itself. This seems to kind of touch on that a little bit before that event actually happened. So it seems to be in somewhat the same territory. Anyway, that's it. That's our Halloween show.
All right.
Our stuff, we've gone through it. Tim, what are you going to do for Halloween? What are the plans?
Close the window, close the doors, turn off the lights. You know, sit in the middle of the house watching black and white.
All right.
I don't know whether or not they're allowing trick or treating or whatnot in Pasadena. You know, some municipalities, they have all kinds of different rules.
Yeah.
And whatnot. I think we talked about at the beginning of the show, so I'm not really sure what's going on. Usually there would be a few kids who would come by right across the campus. I don't know if that's what's going to happen.
Well, we have some interesting decorations out. We'll see if anybody stops by. In the meantime, remember, we're giving away 3 copies of Broil, which lives up to its title. Just write us an email with Broil in the subject line, name and address in the body of the email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. And with that, Tim, have a great Halloween, and we'll chat later.
All right, brother.
It's the mommy.